Sri Lanka is not doing well. At all. Actually, that's a huge understatement. The 20 million island nation right next to India is going through the biggest crisis of its entire existence, and that's talking about a country that went through a civil war less than 15 years ago. I was in Sri Lanka just a couple of weeks ago, and one thing that you notice almost immediately is that there is no electricity for several hours every day. Some places have generators that can create electricity using fuel, but there is also no fuel. Almost every gas station has hundreds of people waiting in queues, sometimes for 10 plus hours. And even if there is some fuel left to buy, it's really expensive. There is no paper to print newspapers, no medicine for people who are sick, and there is now a shortage of pretty much anything that needs to be imported into the country, which is almost everything. And the things that are available cost 2 or 3 times more than what they did just a month ago. And that's fine if you are a tourist on a vacation, but if you were already struggling before, it gets really hard. For a lot of people in the country, these economic problems are not abstract anymore. They make it literally a challenge just to survive. People have to skip meals, some are dying of heat while waiting in queues for fuel, and the country might very soon start running out of basic food items. And people are angry. For the past 2 weeks, there have been protests across the entire country. In Colombo, the capital, people tried to storm the house of the president. And the government is cracking down on the protests by using tear gas, and they even introduced a nationwide 36-hour-long curfew, which basically banned anyone from leaving their house, although no one really listened to it. So what exactly went wrong, and is it gonna get worse? Well, probably yes, but more on that in a minute. The Sri Lankan government says that the current crisis has been caused by COVID, which pretty much killed the tourism sector, which is really important for the economy. And that's true, but it's not the full story. The truth is that since 2005, Sri Lanka has been borrowing a lot of money from abroad to finance large infrastructure projects like ports or highways that it couldn't really afford. And most of this money came from China, which now owns a significant portion of Sri Lanka's debt. And it was mostly used to pay for projects built by Chinese companies that is now Sri Lanka forced to lease back to China because it's not able to keep paying back its loan. And this got worse in 2019, when the current Sri Lankan president, who was trying to win the parliamentary elections, introduced massive tax cuts in what was an obvious attempt to buy votes with other people's money. And then COVID came, and suddenly Sri Lanka had a huge foreign debt to finance, but no income from tourism and no income from taxes to be able to pay for it. It was like someone who borrows a lot of money to buy a lot of flashy things that they can't really afford. And then they lose their job and suddenly they are in a spiral going down. So that's how we got here, but what is gonna happen now? Last week, Sri Lanka stopped paying its foreign debt, which is effectively the same as declaring bankruptcy, and it is now working with the International Monetary Fund to restructure its budget and its economy. Which is what countries usually do when they get in deep trouble that they can't get out of on their own anymore. But even with the help of the IMF, it doesn't have a lot of options. In the foreseeable future, whatever it does, it's just gonna be getting poorer and poorer. And the government's not gonna have enough money to pay for imported products, and it's gonna struggle to even keep the country running. And the average people are gonna suffer. And they know it. So they want the president, who they rightfully blame for everything that's happened, to leave. But that's actually not very likely to happen. The Sri Lankan president is the head of a very powerful Sri Lankan family, kind of a political and business family clan that has been running things in Sri Lanka for the past 80 years. His older brother used to be the president and is now the prime minister, and his 2 other brothers were in the government as well before they were forced to resign. According to some sources, there are over 80 members of the same family who hold different positions in the government. And the family itself is accused of various different crimes, including, most importantly, embezzlement of state funds, or in simpler terms, stealing money from the state. And that's why people are so angry at them, and they want the entire family to be gone from politics forever, and to change the entire system that, according to a lot of people in the country, is completely corrupt. And that's where there it gets really complicated in terms of what's gonna happen now. The protests are calling for one thing, for the president and the prime minister to leave. But they already said that they're not gonna do that under any circumstances. The thing is that if they would step down and accept blame for everything that happened, it would mean not only the end of their political career, but also possible investigations into what exactly they've been up to while they were in government. And that might cost them not just power, but also their wealth, their status, and possibly even their freedom. But if they do end up staying, for a lot of people who are protesting right now, it would mean that the very same people who caused pretty much everything faced absolutely no consequences. And for a lot of people on the streets, that's just not gonna happen. And so, at least for now, there seems to be no way out.